Now, as a preparation of Kalachackra initiation, usually I give some explanation about Buddha Dharma, and particularly the two things, two practice. One, infinite altruism. One, the understanding of emptiness, or shunyata. Because without these two things, you cannot receive initiation. Of course, physically we can attend, but actually impossible to receive the initiation. So, at least those people who are going to receive that initiation, you see, should have some sort of feeling. And in order to develop some feeling of these two things, firstly, you should know. Without knowing, how can develop the real feeling or real sort of deeper sort of experience? So therefore, whenever I give some teaching, I always explain these two things. Then again, in order to follow Buddha Dharma, like any other religion, I believe, firstly, we should know what is the system which later you develop belief or faith. So without knowing the meaning or the system, then it is wrong to say, oh, my family belongs to this religion, that religion, so I am follower of the religion. It is too simple. That kind of faith is very superficial faith. With superficial faith, not much effect on our emotion. In order to transform our mind, our emotion, you should be serious. In order to develop seriousness about one's own faith, you should know the system or the kasuta, the real teaching. So as far as Buddhism is concerned, I usually say telling Buddhist sort of people from Buddhist countries like Chinese or Tibetan or some others, we should be 21st Buddhist century, 21st centuries Buddhist, 21st centuries Buddhist. That means fuller knowledge about sort of modern thing. Meantime, the equally fuller knowledge about Buddhism. That I consider 21st century Buddhist. So our old-fashioned, just faith, pray, without knowing the meaning, or recite Buddha Mishanam Gajami, Dhamma Mishanam Gajami, Sangha Mishanam Gajami, but without knowing what is Buddha, what is Dharma, what is Sangha. So therefore, we must study what is Buddhism, and through study gain fuller knowledge about Buddhism. Then, if you really feel that way of approach is something effective, something suitable for me, then follow that religion. So other tradition also I feel, particularly like Hinduism, the philosophical field very rich. Nowadays many Hindus just simply recite a few shlokas in Sanskrit without knowing the meaning, isn't it? Like we Tibetan also, you see, recite some sutras, but without knowing the meaning. And Japanese, Chinese as well. Some my friend You see, frankly, you should express to me, we also recite certain sutras, but without knowing the meaning. So that is old-fashioned. Now, today's world, we must be realistic. So in order to be realistic in the field of religious faith, first we should know the system. And particularly Buddhism, say Buddhist tradition, usually I sort of explaining this way. Buddhist practice or Buddhism start from human level, then like Gade, Parasamgade, Buddha Saha, then Buddhahood. So therefore, present sort of condition or situation is the basis of Buddhism. On that reality, then some is a concept sort of concluded. That's Buddhist philosophy. Like impermanence, momentarily changing. It's based on actually things are momentarily changing. On that basis, on that reality, the concept of impermanence developed. And then reality, everything interdependent, interconnected. The very nature of the existence is dependent on one another. So the absence of independent existence, that reality, according to that reality, Buddhist concept, emptiness come. So, on the basis of reality, then that is, I call science, Buddhist science. External, science of external things, science of internal things. That's simply science. On that level, no question which is right, which is wrong, which is good, which is bad. No, just simply what is. That's Buddhist science. On that level, then construct where? Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist concept. Then that level, some extent, now the distinction, the good, positive or negative, based on the including animal, we want happiness. We do not want suffering. So suffering and happiness both are among the phenomena which is momentarily changing. So it must be based on causes and conditions. So therefore, since we want happiness, joyfulness, we must know the causes of that. And we have to practice, implement that. Since the causes and conditions fully
ripe,
then result, joyfulness, happiness come. So since we do not want suffering, problem, so we must know the causes. And since we do not want the suffering, so we must restrain involving causes of the suffering. So that is the very idea of Four Noble Truths. We do not want suffering. So Buddha point out the causes of suffering. We want permanent happiness. That is cessation of suffering. That third noble truth. That also come through effort. So fourth noble truth come. The Buddhist term say law of causality. And the Patitsamupad.
Dependent origination.
Huh?
Dependent origination.
Then the further investigation, what is the ultimate source of suffering? The Buddhists say ignorance. It's quite logical. We do not want suffering, but we are facing a lot of suffering. This suffering caused by your own action. So nobody, no sentient being, deliberately commit these causes of suffering. So logically, ignorance. So then, of course, ignorance, there are many different levels of ignorance. Basically, two kinds of ignorance. One ignorance, just a mere ignorance. Another category of ignorance is distorted ignorance. So here, mere ignorance also causing, but mainly distorted ignorance. That's the main thing. So now question is whether there is antidote of that distorted ignorance or not. If there's no antidote, opposition sort of force there, then no possibility to overcome. The further investigation, what kind of ignorance, whether there is because the opposite understanding there or not. And then further investigation, ignorance or awareness, both part of mind. Like anger, compassion, part of mind. Anger, compassion, opposite. Same time, same object, they feel compassion, a sense of concern, of well-being, or sense of hatred cannot go together because these two things are opposite. So fundamental ignorance, if there's no opposite awareness, then no possibility to overcome that ignorance. But there is sort of directly opposed sort of force there. Now further question, whether these kind of distorted ignorance can eliminate or not. That's the serious question. If ignorance, including distorted ignorance, is part of mind, then so long mind there, this ignorance always remain there. But that's not the case. The mind, the very nature of mind is just pure, neutral. So can influence positive emotion, negative emotion. Essentially remain separate as an entity, like that. So through that reasoning, the possibility not only reduce negative, destructive emotion, but also it's possible to eliminate. So that's the concept of nirvana, moksha, liberation. So that's goal. So, and finally, nirvana, the final nirvana is Buddhahood. So once we develop some kind of idea, or the Buddhahood, that's our final sort of destination, final goal. And also the quite clear sort of knowledge how to reach there step by step. On the basis of today's ignorant mind, with help of wisdom, with help of other sort of positive emotion, this very mind can change, can improve, finally can be Buddha's mind. then we develop some kind of genuine enthusiasm to follow or to practice Buddha Dharma. Otherwise, I usually teasing my friend who looks very religious-minded. So always pray to Lord, offering to Lord. But meantime, they quite often also involve corruption. So that's a big contradiction. If you really believe Lord or Buddha or Lord Shivaji or God or Allah, you must be honest, because God always told us, be compassionate, be honest, be truthful. So if you really worship, pray to that, then you must follow that. I think there is danger. Even Buddhists also, you see, pray to Buddha in order to success my wrongdoing, in order to success my corrupt sort of work. How can? I think if you pray to Buddha, if Buddha have sort of power, I think if you more pray to Buddha in order to success my wrongdoing, I think Buddha give you more punishment. If you really, is it the unavoidable, commit corruptions, wrongdoing, then better to stop your practice of Dharma. If you really follow Dharma, then you should lead your life according to Dharma. Isn't it? So sometimes I jokingly tell my Indian friend, basically Indian nation more religious-minded. So practically, I think many people, all level, carry some puja, worship. I'm quite sure those corrupted ministers, corrupted politicians, I think they also daily worship, I think they may do. So indirectly, they worship or pray to Lord in order to cover up their wrongdoing. So like that. So therefore, these are lack of fuller knowledge, fuller sort of conviction or seriousness about one's own sort of faith. We simply carry as a sort of tradition or fashion. That's wrong. We must be realistic. Then, as far as Tibetan Buddhism is concerned, I emphasize we must return the original Sanskrit Nalanda tradition. That's very important. Some of our practice, some of our tradition in Tibet, with too much emphasis about the external things, like instrument, because of horns are horns or some kare, these instruments, without knowing. And also we, for example, you see, every day we chanting or recite several sort of, I think they few hundred pages, but sometimes without knowing the meaning. So these are old-fashioned. Now we must be 21st century Buddhist. So whether you have interest or not, I always try to explain what's Buddhism. That's very important. Then the other day I mentioned briefly, I noticed, I think in 60s, I think 60s, 66, 67, I think around that period. My first visit to Singapore and Malaysia, then also Thailand. So, one occasion in Singapore, I noticed some short sort of the blessing, according to Tantriyana. So, before that blessing, I explained something about Buddhism. The audience seems no interest. Some go to sleep. Then actual sort of ceremony start. Everybody very much full attended. This is wrong. So among Tibetans also, so when they heard, some initiation there, particularly Kalachackra initiation there, then many people showing interest. The other hand, if you see someone is told, someone telling, there is sort of session, explanation about Buddhism, then people may say, very nice, but I'm quite busy doing this and that, like that. I think that kind of habit is, I think, outdated habit. If you're serious, then practice. If you're not serious, don't practice. That's much better. Otherwise, it's hypocrisy, like that. So, in any way, first announced Kalachackra initiation. Then a lot of people come. And actual people gathered. My main focusing is explanation about Buddha Dharma. So here, a little trick showing Kalachackra initiation, may emphasis explanation. So now, firstly, I want to explain because of the broad picture. The desire, achieve happiness, or desire happiness, and desire to overcome suffering, always there. Even animals also have that. Then, I think humanity, in human history, eventually our intelligence have the sort of ability to find some new things, not on the level of sensorial experience, but little further more, further deeper. So I think 4,000, 5,000 years since we invented faith, believe, some mysterious force. When we're passing through difficulties which beyond our control, then the idea, faith to mysterious force, that provide us hope, keep hope. In spite of some difficulties, but still believe something. That give us hope. So, last, I think 4,000 to 5,000 years, faith really worked among humanity. Then, I think philosophical field also, sometimes some mysterious things happen. Then they try to find answer. That's mysterious things. I think ancient time, lightning, something mysterious. So, traditionally, mysterious force in sky, that kind of thing. Through that way, few thousand go like that way. Then last about 300 years, science, technology develop. Then those things which we previously, those things which we want, but beyond our ability, so just through prayer to materialize some of the things which we want, including health. Now science and technology develop. After that, you see, there are many things which we previously based on faith or prayer. Now that immediately you see bring because of the positive result. So naturally, people incline about I'm interested about science and technology. Then less sort of interest about religious tradition. However, later part of 20th century, one, scientific research really developed higher and higher or deeper, particularly the brain sort of science. Then they develop interest about emotion, about mind, and relation, brain particles or neurons and the mind or emotion, these things. So that lead, even among the scientists, scientific field. Previously, mind, even some scientists, some I think radical materialistic scientists, even reject existence of mind. Now that gradually changing. And then other hand, those society or individual family, materially everything, very rich, all the facilities there. However, many of them mentally unhappy, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of distress. And also modern society, all the material facilities there, but the mental problems there, sometimes increasing, including loneliness, or sometimes too much, frustration, so relying on drugs. So like that. And then alcohol. These are the clear signs, mentally unhappy. So since they fail to bring certain sort of countermeasure about these mental problems within mind, so they rely on external means, drugs, alcohol, like that. Then when these methods fail, then suicide. The rate of suicide, also sometimes the material affluent sort of society, the cases of suicide also you see they are increasing. So therefore, two factors. Scientific field also you see develop some sort of interest. What is mind? What is the relation, brain and mind, emotions? And then medical field, science also you see now develop sort of because of the awareness, peace of mind is very good for health, very important for health. Too much anxiety, too much anger, very bad for our health. So through that way, they develop interest how to keep a calm mind. So later part of 20th century began to show some interest about mind. And then also you see about the subjects such as compassion, forgiveness, tolerance. And also now these moral crisis directly related with spiritual principles. Moral principle. Moral principle is you cannot buy from market or cannot produce by medicine and cannot make by law, regulation. Increase the forces of police cannot bring moral principle. Moral principle out of fear is very temporary. Moral principle with conviction, then it really develop. So actually, even it's a good system, like India, very good system, very good tradition, and also America, very good tradition, very good system. But people who involve these systems, lack of principle, then without self-discipline, corruption always possible. So self-discipline, not watching outside, but within ourselves, self-discipline is the real answer to create clean society. The self-discipline will not bring by force, but by moral principle. So here also you see the significance of different sort of spirituality now becoming some relevant. So now about religion now. Of course, according to Indian tradition, at least last 3,000 years, the concept of secularism there. According to Indian sort of secularism, right? The idea or view of the secularism, according to Indian tradition. One time, the Dr. Advani, one of the former Deputy Prime Minister of Government of India, one time, I know him very well, so one time we, just with casual talk, he mentioned the India, 1,000 years, this tradition, in philosophical viewpoint, among the different sort of philosophical viewpoint, one was the school of thought, actually nihilism, denying existence of higher being or God or Buddha or next life or law of causality, simply things exist on what we see, what we can touch. Beyond that, nothing. So that, the Sanskrit word they call Charvaka school of thought, nihilism. So Dr. Advani used to told me, so in ancient time, so last almost 3,000 years, you see the rest of the school of thought criticize about that nihilism, that nihilistic viewpoint, Charvaka. At the same time, person who holds that sort of view, nihilistic view, refer Rishi. Rishi means sage. So, as a person, respect. Consider as a philosopher. But their philosophy, nihilistic philosophy, so criticize, even condemn. So make a distinction. The person, as a human being, must respect. But their view, wrong view, so criticize. So that's the concept of secularism, Indian secularism. So since respect, ancient sort of nihilist, so today's modern time, those people who have no sort of faith, non-believer, we must respect them. So that is the secularism. According to India, secularism respect all religions, including non-believers' viewpoint. Non-believers. So I usually try to promote that kind of secularism. If you have religion, very good. If you have no religious faith, all right, but be nice person, sensible person. So that again related with inner quality, like that. So now here, about religions. One time in Amritsar, we had one religious conference, interfaith sort of conference. One Sufi philosopher, he mentioned, he explained 3 questions. What is self? First question. Second question, whether that self beginning or not. Third question, whether there is self end or not. 3 questions. I thought it is really very nice to start in order to make distinction in different sort of traditions. So the first question, what is self? Except Buddhism, all theistic religion or non-theistic religion, that means Sankhya, or one part of Sankhya philosophy, that's ancient Indian Hindu tradition. Then Jainism, non-theistic religion, including these 2, all believe self, something independent from this body, really owner of this body and mind. So body change, but the same owner. So particularly those, I think they all sort of non-Buddhist traditions, even you see after death, something go to heaven or hell, that's soul. And then those, also the ancient Indian tradition, believe rebirth. Beside this body and mind, there must be something which take life after life, which go life after life. So that we call Atma or soul. Only Buddhism say no such independent, separate identity, such a soul, not there. Self is there, I is there. It's just designated on the combination of body and mind. So since you see, I or self designated on the body and mind, so we can easily say male self, female self, or old self, or young self, like that. If self is something completely sort of separate
Independent.
from the body and mind, then difficult to say soul, male or female, old, young, difficult. So obviously, body change, self also change. Young self, old self, sick person, healthy person, go like that. So, from the answer of first question, two divisions: Buddhism, rest of the non-Buddhism. Now the question, second question, whether there is a beginning or not about the self. Those religions which believe creator, then there is a beginning of self. Only after creator creates our life, then that's a beginning. According to Christian, this very life is the first life, because this very life created by God. So that concept also very, very powerful. Very nice. So the more, I said, the closeness feeling towards God, there is more sort of, I said, desire or more enthusiasm to follow God's sort of path. That is love, compassion, forgiveness. And also those, according theistic religion, God is everything, absolute, independent. We totally depend on God. Right? So, God truly Father. And then, according to when we develop faith, you totally submit to God. So that view is actually a similar effect which Buddhist concept of anatma, selflessness. You see, that concept, the aim or purpose of that concept is reduce self-centered attitude. So the single-pointed faith towards God, towards Creator, same effect, reduce self-centered sort of grasp of feeling. Right.
No.
Like that. So very good. To some people, of course, that way of approach is much more sort of forceful, very effective. Then those non-theistic religious tradition, according to them, the Jainism, also the Sangha, one part of Sangha, whether they accept beginning or not, that I don't know very clearly. Do you know something? 그래서
지는 제법 요 말했어.
제법이 요 말 봐. No creator. So things according to law of causality. But whether there is beginning or not, the self or atma. No clear. I don't know. Number of occasions I have sort of opportunity to exchange Jain sort of philosopher, Jain practitioner, Jain monk, Jain nun. Oh, wonderful people, wonderful people. I quite often is telling one my story, little bit of jokes also. Among the Jain practitioner, two groups. One completely naked. One they just the white clothes.
White cloth.
One time in New Delhi, one Jain master I know that late master, wonderful. He totally submitted about religious harmony, interfaith service, and also for peace. So after his death, his follower built one temple. So the opening ceremony of that temple, they invited me. I went there. One Jain master, completely naked. He just sit. My seat just behind him.
Next to him.
I really developed admiration. Such courage. Otherwise, in the public public meeting, completely naked, everything demonstrated. So a little bit difficult. But you see, he such a discipline, no bother. I really admire his such devotion, devoted to one's own faith. So I didn't pay much about his secret thing. But my liaison officer from Ministry of External Affairs, a very nice person, we always joking. So after that meeting, I asked him whether you have darshan. Darshan means
blessing. Vision, blessing through vision.
Whether you have darshan that thing. He said yes. Looks, you see, he really pay attention about that part. So anyway, the Jainism, really wonderful, and their life really carried very strictly non-violent sort of way. Very, very wonderful. And their life, simplicity, they deliberately weaken our body just because of the maintain the sustenance. Never luxuries. But meantime, a lot of businessmen are actually Jain. Very rich, many rich families basically come from Jain. And anyway, so according to this tradition, I don't know the exact answer whether there is a beginning or not about self. Now, as far as Buddhism is concerned, in order to investigate whether there is a beginning or not about self, you must investigate whether there is a beginning or not about mind, because the concept of self designated on the combination of mind and body. Of course, both mind and body, there are grosser level of body and mind, more subtler level, very, very subtle level, but very subtle level, then even this body also continue. But grosser level of body, I think the concept of human being on grosser level. So there is end. So the continuation mind of human mind is go. It goes all of that. The real substantial continuation of mind is always there. So there are quite often, you see, people raise question: if Buddhism do not accept self, then who is who is there? Who is taking
rebirth,
life after life? So that's a misunderstanding. Buddhists say, when Buddhists say no soul, just independent, absolute, unchanging self. That kind of soul does not exist. But mere self, on the combination of body and mind, is there. It continues. So the subtle level, body and mind, both continuously. But more grosser level, then of course, then the real, I think the main sort of the basis of sentient being is continuation of mind. So when we investigate whether there is beginning or not about self, then we must investigate beginning, whether there is beginning or not about the mind. So now here, Buddhist epistemology, and also some other, investigation. Then the conclusion is, mind also is momentarily changing. Since the momentarily changing, anything which momentarily changing must be based on its own causes. 그래서 계지 직외 등이도 깨야 돼. 루브루의 균이지 샤바 뭐인바. 랑 계지 유치할 했어.
And furthermore, Buddhists understand that any phenomena that is subject to change is by definition dependent upon its causes and conditions. And furthermore, the fact that phenomena come into being as sharing this nature of momentariness, that is not created by some other third condition, but rather the very condition or cause that created it, created in such nature, in a momentary nature, transient nature.
So now, like any other the phenomena which is momentarily changing, there must be causes and conditions. And among the cause, substantial cause, cooperative causes. So without a substantial cause, even cooperative causes there, it cannot produce the effect.
Result.
So there must be a substantial cause. So mindless substance, it is sort of substantial cause, similar sort of pattern. Then phenomena such as mind, mere experience, mere cognitive, no form, no color. So its substantial cause must be same nature. The material can be cooperative causes, but never be substantial causes of mind. So today's mind, the continuation of previous mind, this life's mind, continuation of previous lives of the mind. So that's why there is possibility, memory about past life. Different physical, different brain, but the same continuity of the mind. Memory is part of the mind. Mind, there are different levels, grosser level, more subtle level. So grosser level mind very much related with our
brain.
Physical, our brain. But more subtler, different. Now for example, the awakening state, just this moment, we use very grosser level of mind, including senses of organs. Then dream state, senses of organs are no longer functioning. So only mental state. Within mental state, a little grosser. So dreams, dream's own sort of certain sort of sensorial thing there. Then further deeper, deep sleep without dream, the sixth mind or mental state still there. Go like that, people faint, even breathing stop, the subtle mind still there. Then the deepest sort of subtle mind is at time of death. So according to our viewpoint, those people who after death, clinically completed death, brain death, but still the body remained very fresh. Just I think last month, in New Zealand, one Tibetan monk, when I reached there, New Zealand recently, I think 10th day or 9th day or 10th day after his death, his body still remained very fresh. So the local doctor, according to their sort of law, you cannot keep the dead body decayed. So according to law, they call doctor and check, thorough check. The doctor say dead. But at the same time, doctor surprised his body, no indication of decay. So it remained, I think altogether, 11 or 12 days remain like that. Such case in India last more than 50 years. I think as far as I know, about 20-30 cases. One longest case, the dead body remained 3 weeks, 4 weeks without decaying the body substance. So it is quite a new subject for scientists, brain specialists. Now we already have some program to carry research work about that. So now here one sort of complication is till that actually happen, nobody knows who going to have that kind of sort of capacity. So we have to just wait. And then impossible to ask someone, please to die in order to our research work, carry research work. That also difficult. And also not very sure when we request someone. And if he or she accept that request, die. Then if fail, then terrible. So just wait. So I think more than 10 years ago, as a result of our discussion with scientists, so some simple machine equipment put Dharamsala, our clinic there. So while that equipment there, nobody die who have that experience. When someone die or remain few days, then that equipment not there. Then since I think last more than last 3 years, about 3 years, now that one better equipment now permanently remain Dharamsala, and a few people already trained how to handle these things, and also keep communication with scientists, mainly in America. So I think longest day, one great scholar, and actually the topmost sort of the supreme leader of Yellowhead sect, in his case, about 3 weeks. So after I received information, his body remained fresh. Then I immediately asked the hospital where these equipment there, and also trained people there. So immediately I asked them, should go to South India. So they went, and all the wires put on that dead body's head. Then some communication with some scientist in America. So I think next 10 days, I think, more than 10 days, you see, they clearly recorded like that. So to the scientist, this is completely new phenomena. Buddhists who accept different level of consciousness, then there's sufficient sort of explanation how it happened like that. So now there are some indication even among the scientists. So there might be special energy beside this body, or very subtle, not depend entirely for this body. After functioning of this body cease, that subtle energy still can move more or less independently. So now that's the now question, the new sort of the question marks, the further investigation, like that. So in any way, from the Buddhist viewpoint, since the subtle mind, no beginning, otherwise the substantial cause must be some different sort of nature. That is impossible. So therefore, there's no beginning because of the substantial cause of mind, like that. So automatically, self, no beginning. That's the Buddhist answer. Then they question, third question, whether there's end or not. Those theistic, according to theistic religion, when they reach heaven or hell, I don't know whether remain permanently, not, I don't know. But in any way, in the heaven, permanently remain, that's very good, wonderful. If go to hell, then permanently remain there, oh, that's quite terrible. So I really don't know. That also about Sangha philosophy. Out of 24 factors of existence.
Factors of existence.
So only two things. So
according to Samkhya taxonomy of reality, which accept 24 factors of existence, out of these, two, the primal substance and the intellect, which is the self, these two are understood to be ultimate or absolute truths, then the remaining being relative phenomena.
So after sort of reach moksha, when they 다시르기 기부 남주 상황으로 조율지의 뭐지 그런 시대 시행주산에 아니 다 타고타와 남주도 봐 팀진체.
So according to
되네는 그 모든 되게 되면 하는 게 역시만 소리.
So according to Samkhya philosophy, the process of liberation occurs in the sense that while we remain deluded, we tend to confuse all the conventional relative phenomena, which are in reality manifestations of the two, the primal substance. We tend to see these manifestations to be real, and once we recognize their ephemeral nature, their relative nature, and recognize these to be just pure manifestations coming out of the primal substance, then the self, which is the intellect, will come to recognize that, and then the self then dissolves into the primal substance, and so that is how the enlightenment, the liberation or salvation. The manifestations dissolve, and only the primal substance and the self remains.
So then afterward, what happened? I don't know. Now, as far as Buddhism is concerned, Buddhism is concerned, now two school of thought, except one part of Vivashik school of thought, out of 18 subdivisions. I think one or two believe after Mahaparinirvana, then Buddha's mind cease. So automatically Buddha's self also cease. Except these school of thought, all remaining Buddhist school of thought believe or reasoning the existence of mind, no counterforce. So there is no reason cease that. The cessation possible, cease possible because of counterforce, like that. So therefore, the all rest of Buddhist school of thought say, no beginning, no end. So that's the answer for three questions. So here you get the idea, differences in the philosophical field. And the philosophical field, even within Buddhism, there are many different philosophical viewpoints. Some of them, of course, later Narendra masters, they themselves also, you see, create certain sort of views. But some major sort of views, Buddha himself used to taught. Like the Chittamantra philosophical viewpoint and the Madhyamika viewpoint, both based on Buddha's speech, Buddha's teaching. So I usually used to telling people, these contradictory, important philosophical view taught by one teacher, Buddha, Shakyamuni himself. So that different contradictory philosophy taught by a single person, they're not due to his own confusion. He himself not very sure. Then one day he taught this, next day taught a different thing. Certainly not that way. Enlightened person must know. Then he deliberately taught contradictory philosophy in order to create more confusion among his student. That also not the case. The compassionate Buddha. So you see, such things impossible. So then question is, why Buddha taught contradictory philosophy? The answer, only answer is, because among his follower there are different mental dispositions. So one philosophical viewpoint is simply not sort of sufficient to variety of people, different mental disposition. Therefore, Buddha compelled, teach or taught a different philosophical viewpoint according to their mental sort of situation, like that. So what we learned from there? Yes, to say, you see, I think in the past, at least, I think the 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, among such people, naturally, different location in Arab world, Asia, like that. You see, the ancient time in Egyptian, or say the Taksik or Iran, like that. And then Hindu Kush,
Hindu Kush Valley.
Indus Valley. Indus Valley sort of philosophical sort of the viewpoints or civilization. So Egyptian civilization, Chinese civilization, and then Indus Valley civilization. Different location, different climate, different way of life. So naturally, due to different environment, certain sort of, I think in certain level, some differences, the way of thinking. So therefore, different sort of traditions develop. It is necessary. Even today, I said, to some people, the concept of God is so powerful, very effective, very, very helpful. To some people, the law of causality is so much sort of suitable, their view. So, different religious view develop. It's necessary, and it is helpful. It worked. So therefore, the important is, what is the purpose of this different philosophy? Then say, concept of God, in order to strengthening practice of love, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, self-discipline, contentment, these things. The philosophical viewpoint, another sort of viewpoint, law of causality. Same. If you do good things, you get positive result. If you do bad things, you get negative result. So through that way of approach, restrain harming other. And through that way, try to develop practice of love, compassion. So same purpose, according to different mental disposition. So when I participated in interfaith service, I always make clear differences, fundamental differences. Then all these different philosophical viewpoint, different way of approach, but same goal, better human being, sensible human being, compassionate human being. So no problem. So that's important, we should know. And one time, I often used to making or sharing one story. Many years ago, Argentina, one meeting, some scientist, some religious leader, Christian, and myself, and I think some Hindus also there. And then the scientist, one Chilean, I was told he was the one teacher of late Francisco Varela's teacher, one famous scientist, brain scientist. So he mentioned at our meeting, he physicist, quantum physicist, and he mentioned I should not develop attachment towards his own scientific field. I think that is really great teaching. Immediately I felt, I'm Buddhist, but I should not develop attachment towards Buddhism, because attachment develop, then your view becoming biased. With that kind of biased view, then your own religion is the best. So through that way, the concept of one religion, one truth develop. Through that way, there is possibility of fundamentalism. Of course, the religious conflict, in most cases, in ancient time and even today, I think the main reason is political power or economic interest, not religion itself. But at the same time, there are people who really believe one's own religion is the only religion, only truth. So others are sinful, something like that. So these are due to the attachment, biased. Once our mind becomes biased, then you can't see the others objectively, like that. So when I was in Tibet, I think I myself also a little bit biased. After come to India, then meet a lot of sort of people from different tradition, like late Thomas Merton, and also the Anil Kasa.
Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa.
Oh, Mother Teresa. Like that. So really, see, they confirm me all major religious tradition. have same potential to produce such a wonderful people. So that's the purpose. So then I really developed genuine admiration and appreciation towards all these major traditions. That's very important. So here are people who basically, you see, they, I think, follow of different tradition. I mean, traditionally, America, non-Buddhist country. So, whenever I give a lecture on Buddhism in Europe or in America, I always emphasize your tradition is basically Judeo-Christian sort of tradition. So it is better to keep your own Judeo-Christian faith, and to some extent Muslim. Buddhism is something very new. So therefore, better to keep your own tradition, faith, rather than change. Religious faith is not like fashion. Fashion, okay, today your hairstyle, something different. The next year, another sort of style, okay, doesn't matter. But religious matter, not like that. So be cautious. Better, safer, keep one's own tradition. Again, I have one example. In early 60s, we, Tibetan refugee community, freshly arrived in India. Then there are a lot of difficulties. So one Tibetan lay official, Tibetan government lay official, he's posting 59, posting very near border. So he had opportunity, his whole family brought to India. So then soon he passed away, and his wife, and with small children, 2 or 3 children remain. Very difficulties. At that time, see, few thousand Tibetan, our way of earning is road work. Very difficult. So one day she came to see me and told me her sort of stories, all these difficulties. Then she told me she received immense sort of help from a Catholic relief service, and some other sort of Christian organization. Then even her children also, you see, take care for education, some of these Christian missionary. So then she told me, for this life, now she become Christian. Now next life, she will be Buddhist. So that's a clear sign of confusion. And then also, you see, some my Christian friend, they're so much attracted towards Buddhism that later one lady, I noticed, one Polish lady, very old, she really, you see, they accept Buddhism is her sort of new religion. But around the time of her death, see, it seems to see concept of God constantly to come reflect on her mind. So that also sign of confusion. So it is better to keep one's own tradition. However, among millions of people, some people, one way, have some interest about spirituality. At the same time, not satisfy your own traditional sort of spirituality. Then, if that individual finds some Eastern sort of tradition, including Buddhism, more sort of suitable, more sort of, what should I say, effective, then okay, to choose that faith. But in the meantime, you must keep your respect towards your traditional religion. That's very, very important. I often telling Mongolians in Mongolia and also Himalayan range, some Christian missionaries You see, while they helping health field, education field, they also some carrying some work for, let's say, the conversion. One time I met some Korean missionaries. They carry some work for conversion. So I told them, face to face, directly, this is Buddhist country, Buddhist community. It is better to keep their own religion. I told them. So like that, the country traditionally follow one particular religion. It is better to keep that. And meantime, some individual, it is exception. But meantime, must keep respect. Now about Buddhism. As I mentioned it before, the foundation of Buddha Dharma, Four Noble Truths. And that's common. Theravada tradition, or Pali tradition, Sanskrit tradition, all same. That's the foundation. Based on law of causality. Buddhist terminology here says Paticca Samuppada. There are two meaning, two level of meaning. One Paticca Samuppada is the law of causality. Another level of meaning of Paticca Samuppada is interdependency. So the Paticca Samuppada, in sense, cause and effect, that's only phenomena which momentarily changing. Then second level of Paticca Samuppada, interdependency, that's everything, including shunyata itself, or is the Dhammatakaya, Buddha's Dhammatakaya.
Natural body of the
Buddha. Sanskrit word?
Svabhivika.
Including these permanent sort of phenomena, not depend on causes and condition, but depend on other factor, interdependency, like that. So that is mainly, according to Madhyamika philosophy. The rest of the Buddhist philosophy, they put it Samuppada in sense,
cause and effect,
depend on causes and conditions, like that. So now I think I think this. Please raise a book.
You have a copy of the text, yeah.
So page short on Jimdo.
Do what to?
Don't do it. Do. Sarama says to you should be. Mari, Uzukovje, 98, Tibetan.
So the English translation is on page 39.
English translation?
No, 39.
Now this text, wrote by a great scholar or practitioner, great bhikshu of Nalanda, the disciple, one of the main disciple of Shantarakshita. Shantarakshita, I think the 8th century and 9th century, invited to Tibet by Tibetan Emperor Trisung Dezen, and also with Bema Sambhava. So the real sort of the real person who introduced Buddha Dharma in Tibet was the Shantarakshita, a scholar, Nalanda scholar, and a bhikshu. So he gave ordination, he gave teaching, and also help translation. According to some historian, when he reached Tibet, very old, according to some historian, over 70, nearly 80 years old. But he, according to some sort of historian, he himself tried to learn Tibetan. In any way, he advised the Tibetan emperor that you should make available all Buddhist teaching in Tibetan language. So all these texts is translated into Tibetan. So since then, few generations, altogether about 300 volumes, all translated from India, except I think about 10 volumes translated from Chinese language. Otherwise, all come from India, either Sanskrit or Pali, and in some cases maybe Nepalese, like that. So he, Shantarakshita, great philosopher, Madhyamika philosopher, and also same time great logician. In his writing we can see great logician and philosopher. The Kamalashila, his disciple. So on the request of Tibetan Emperor Chisun Tezin, he wrote this text. Gurum tamen ande ditu. Cheyek gumanzaban nashi nge TV sa sungsha.
So in the colophon of the third book of the stages of meditation, which has 3 books, book 1 and book 2 and book 3, in the colophon of the book 3, there is a explicit reference to the fact that this text was written at the behest, at the request of the emperor.
So now the name of the text, Gumrim Parpa, the Gomberimba.
So the title of the text is Stages of Meditation, Book 2, because it reference to the Book 1 and 2 and 3.
Gom said, Gomberimba, so Gom Rim said, Dunibuti, Gom's left you, Chevabuchi, Kumri Tempedal Gomsilita.
So the term stages of meditation in Tibetan is composed of 2 syllables, Gom and Rim. And Gom refers to meditation, and stages is Rimpa. And when we look at the Tibetan term Gom, which is a translation for meditation, it is a very active term, which already connotes certain agency on the part of someone doing something.
So that Gom Suzane, Combercheva, Dibercheva. Ta Comshing Diber Chiludella, Chevacheni, Gunzenton Gone, Tandela, Lochini Chinin Raji, Timil Jago said. Ta Chadula, any Rishik Mijuber, Chadung Tandela Lo.
So the term Gom or meditation here is an active term which refers to actually a process involving a cultivation of familiarity with a chosen object. And what is that process? The process involves 2 kinds. One is a discursive or analytic process, which involves the application of inquiry and critical application of reason, through which one cultivates a deeper familiarity with a chosen topic or a fact. And so that is one type of approach, one aspect of the approach. The other aspect of the approach is not to apply investigation or analysis, but rather to place one's mind settled upon, say for example, a conclusion that one has reached as a result of analysis. Then one ceases analysis but places one's mind settled and single pointed upon that concluded point. So that's the second type of second aspect of meditation.
Shanyang Kwam Sadlia Shanam Kwambasluna, Ningji Kwamba, Taba Kwambasluna, Kwamje Lotte Namjania Rang Loti, Digang, Di Namjil Ki Talia Shanam Kwambasari, Kwamje Turn did the Shiva Chadorva, Ningji the Chabasluna, Chazanga, Kwamje Shiva Temur Rang Loti, Guam, Lotemur Kevadi. Shenam Komas, Shiva Nabakoma. Daya Midawada, Donda, Desutedi, Kushiva Marwa, Ko Gomje Lodrovada, Gomje, Gojolosa, Gomje Yudi Meduzane, Take Goms Luduzane, Zindang Yuduchane, Shiji Lu, Turn te Zindang Yuduchane, Midawa Re, Midawa in Samba, Dano in Samba Chiki, or Gomiachi. 다이네 배나 미다고 고민되잖아요. 미다고래야 계지 니베 뒤수 계지 당보 가스 버치기 미다고 지도와 데르샤 베지 각외나 버치기죠. 다 계지 당보 렁뒤수 계지 당부 지금 단위도 예버디 아메다고 거지도와 디페지 주변 남자 책임을 쓰고 계지 당부 거를 렁들을 지금 단위도 예되어 지기 계지 당부 렁들이야 양 삼대야지 지도게 지금 단위도 예버다 지금 단위도出什么 캐스도와 로를 치단도 캐스도게 다 다음에 공스는 각외 남자로 샤인 Pena Pumbo Comsage Lavin, Pena under day, Madara Sajidina, Pena Langi, Mabati, Yorwa, Langi Yomari, Langi Mabayinza, Langi Mabati Yorwa. So Langi Mabati turn Lolia Shayadua. Langi Mabe turn Lola Sheduzane, Gacha, Langi Yana Nando Rumale, Minawa Yimbe, Gunzingi, Langi Maba Toyadua. So that the lunch member thoughts to do a lot of Shagumidua. Gaja lunch is 7 on a lot of Shagua.
Furthermore, there are also different ways in which one can understand the distinctions within the forms of meditation. Say, for example, if someone is meditating on compassion or cultivating devotion, then in these cases, although we can call these compassion and devotion as object of our meditation, but in actual fact they are not object in the sense of content of our mind. Rather, what we are trying to do is we are seeking to cultivate our own mind in that form. So for example, we are trying to experience compassion. We are trying to cultivate our mind in such a way that it takes on the tone of a compassionate feeling. Similarly, when we meditate on faith or devotion, we are not taking that as an object in the sense of a content, but rather we are turning our mind into that so that it takes on that flavor or tone. So that's one type of practices. Then in contrast, you have, say, other types of meditation where you take the meditation object as a content. For example, meditation on impermanence or meditation on selflessness or no self. In these cases, we are trying to cultivate an understanding of impermanence or selflessness, and so that in the process of meditation we are trying to apprehend the true meaning of that object. Now, of course, when we talk about meditation on impermanence, this can again take different forms. For example, we can reflect upon impermanence in the sense of something that has ceased to exist, something that was there before but has ceased to exist. Say, for example, the cessation of the first moment during the time of the second instance. That's a form of understanding an impermanence. But that here, again, approaches primarily from a negative aspect, because it is by means of negation. But one can also meditate upon the meaning of emptiness in a more kind of a less, by means of negation. For example, recognizing the fact that this particular phenomena has the transient nature, so that it has such a nature that it is momentariness. Meditating upon impermanence in the form of momentariness does not approach impermanence purely via negation approach. However, if you take the example of meditation on selflessness or anatman, no self, then the approach is primarily by means of negation. You are simply negating the self-existence with relation to the chosen object. Now, how do we approach, say, a pure absence in the form of a negation? For example, in this room, we can correctly say there is no elephant. So, and just as we can say there is no elephant in this room, we can also develop a knowledge of this absence of elephant. Now, the absence of elephant is true, and how do we know this? Is only through negation of the presence of elephant. So you can see how knowledge and the mind kind of engages with relation to the truth, and some of the truth can only be accessed by approach of a negation. So this is where again one needs to understand, when we talk about meditation, what type of meditation, what form of meditation we are talking about, what type, and what kind of approach we are talking about.
Yeah. Handa Guam Slutuzane Guamje Tuntela Lopa Niebuchani Shugo Jig Zawa Chimigoba Rangangi Tunte Talia Lodipige Kasore Tab Dish Combeto Ten more that Tins now use Shavine da Lotte more giving in da Kandaji Zawa Chimigo Rangangi de Kasore Guamje Tunte more Rodachi.
So in brief, when we talk about the meaning of the term meditation, and the Tibetan term Gom particularly, we are talking about a process by which it enables us, through a process of cultivation, to become closer to a chosen object, to become more familiar with that chosen object, so that you reach a point where, say for example, if it is a cultivation of compassion, that you reach a point where simply by recalling compassion, you're able to generate that without much exertion. Similarly, if it is an understanding of impermanent or understanding of no self, where you take the object as a content, then through meditation what you are seeking is to reach a point where your understanding of no self or impermanence will arise without exertion, by simply focusing turning your thought on the topic. So that is the meaning of meditation.
That tell ya God de Tisungudua, Tang Lungs to Law Moche, Tang God de Didua, Gumdir and Jujedi, Tamje Kimokova, Imbere, Tamje Kimokova Seati, to the Kennedy and Yongo race. Other Digi law of causality said shame. Just not take issue, and the Tunjig Tendisel share. Tendilia Tunjig Tendisachita Casati, Tenatak with Tendisachi, Nisha. Sata and the Tangudi, Tunjig Tendisoni, D. Tegishu Nashiri, Tambashi, Yoyagi, Shimuru Tatichado.
So we now begin with the text, and I'm not going to bother reading the entire text word by word. So right at the beginning of the text, Kamalashila identifies what is the object of aspiration in this context of a practitioner, and he identifies the attainment of omniscient state of Buddhahood to be the highest aspiration of this particular practitioner. And then in the opening section of the text, he explicitly points out that the attainment of this highest aspiration can only come about as a result of causes and conditions. And here he is right at the beginning presenting the Buddha's teaching on dependent origination in terms of the first level of meaning, which is dependence in terms of causes and conditions. And later on, he will explain the second level of meaning of dependent origination, which is dependence in terms of dependent designation, or imputation or dependent designation.
Yeah.
And so of these two levels of meaning of dependent origination, the first level, which is dependence in terms of causes and condition, really constitutes the basis and the foundation upon which the Buddha's teaching on the Four Noble Truths is based.
Dāmbā shī suyā dē, chumdē dēgi, chō chīk nē, dēng shī ngō lō dābās, chāmbā chīk chē. Dēne dēng shī chāwā lō dābās, chāmbā chīk chē. Dēne chāwā rīwū dā chāwā lō dābās, dēsēn chāmbā lō chīk chē, sūm sūm dō kwa. Dēn nāngā chūmbū rē shā. Dēng shī ngō lō dābās yā dēgi, shī nī sū shāmbā dābū rē. Tāwa nā tāmbā shī nā kā guāpāi tāpa sāyā shī nī sū shī nā tā yabā shirvā sū tā tētā mārī tē inē tūngēn dērū yīmbā tē tā tūngēn chāyā chālā guāk tēn sīgī yabā yīdū sā nē tūngēn dērū yīmbā tē shīlī yār bā tā sā lām tēn tātā kyūla mē nā yā lōt dī kāng lī yā inē tēn tēlā 양의 양도 재신 권백관에 리브르잖아 된다라 산나 토야 여드버지 춘이로 스나 람데인스야게 조요 된다로고 시내주 레고도 실을 산나 중롱게 똑바 권배 애니 타마니 니나 누베 애니 산나 토야지 실을 매나 람데인 하면 봐 다른 신기 가시오르 그 뭐뭐 강라 거래 냠부담 간다 냠부담데 예배차네 데루 임버지 셰셜 매나 고딩 영화 걸면도 와 자상가 담바시 당부디 시 남샤도 숨에서 그렇지 심의는 내주디 있어 대시 뭐는 대배 내가 올라 랭이다 랑도께지 말ছে 되네 르번이베들 레이르산에 대시 자원은 대봤을도 다 동네 사디 빵과야지 아니 진짜 인도산에 빵제 동네를 차라먹고요 하리 동네 라바다 아주 신신버리디 동네 차시 차원에 셰버주 개체물에 송도 동네 셰버차 셋송 동네 차시 차원에 셰 인도산에 차시 차의 동네 디디기 자교 가르치기 버디리 아니 군중 사주 전에 군중 50을 거돌라 레부 동네디 마요야 된다라 대교 군중 아니 고고를 사게 군중 방을 샀었지. 다 동네기 군중 방배 락질라 동네 녀월 시에 자와지 토는 거야. 다 대니 먼저 차리스. 대 군중 방배 차례 연대의 영화라 군중 계지 남아 계지 침에 두고 가치 베게지 말해. 계지 당부 계지 입에 두고 시버디 계지 말해. 냠부컨시 맞게나 계지 무튼이 깨돼야지 냠부께베 또기 아니 가려야 지가 자왔어요. 저나 드네인데 대대에 자와된 것도 제발라 제주 뭐부터 간다 덤된지 아니 깨고레스 람ቋ버차서 들소이 말이야. 대단 관배 아니 대부 가리운 것으로나 동해 땅도 빵, 군중 땅도 빵. 드리는서는 동해 시합을 차요 말에, 군중 빵을 차요 말에. 고방은 람지 대방은도 고방은도 제심비 제래야. 아니 랄 고방은도 차지다. 아니 가서 되게 람dengon도 차요 말에. 고바 타르치면 내가 그래.
So now if we look at the teachings on the Four Noble Truths by the Buddha, we see that in the scripture Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths in 3 ways. In a set of three kind of teachings. In the first context, Buddha simply talked about the nature of these 4 truths. And in this case, he says, this is the truth of suffering, this is the truth of origin, this is the truth of cessation and the path and so on. So on this first level, what we see is that Buddha is speaking about the nature of reality, the reality of suffering and the reality of suffering and its causes. Now here, the cessation may not be real for us in our ordinary state. Similarly, the true path may not be real in our ordinary state, but the basis for both the cessation and true paths is part of our reality. For example, if the afflictions and the causes and conditions of the suffering are not ultimately removable from our mental continuum, then there is no basis for the possibility of attainment of cessation. So the fact that we possess the possibility of removing these afflictions is part of our reality. Similarly, within us, although we do not possess the true path as part of our reality, but we do possess within us, within our mental continuum, the potential for actualization of genuine insight, true insight into the nature of reality, without which there won't be any path emerging in us. So the point is that when Buddha identified each of these truths, he is speaking primarily at the level of understanding of nature of reality. So the first one is the really ground. Now, on this level, or in this context, there is no moral evaluations about what is right and what is wrong, simply a recognition and understanding of the nature of reality. Now, in the second context, then Buddha talks about the specific functions of the knowledge of these 4 truths. So in this case, Buddha says, with relation to suffering, we must understand the nature of suffering. We must bring about the end. We must eliminate the origin of suffering. We must actualize the cessation of suffering, and we must cultivate the truth of the path. So here, Buddha is, when explaining the functions of the knowledge of these 4 noble truths, then evaluations come in. For example, since suffering is something that we do not wish, the causes that lead to suffering are things that need to be abandoned and eliminated. Since true cessation is what we wish, the conditions that lead to that is something that needs to be cultivated. And so with relation to, say, for example, understanding the nature of reality and nature of suffering, on the gross level, we do recognize sufferings that are more evident, painful experiences. But when Buddha says one must understand the nature of suffering, he's also talking about the subtle levels of the nature of suffering as well. And the cessation of the truth of the cessation is literally the imprint that we attain after the application of the true path. So the cessation comes about as a result of the application of the true path, and the true path, application of the true path necessarily involves application of powerful antidotes against the origins of suffering, particularly the more afflicted states of mind. And so through the application of these powerful antidotes, when we are able to eliminate the afflictions, then the resulting imprint of that is the attainment of true cessation. So that's why Buddha said suffering must be known and understood, origins of suffering must be eliminated, cessation must be actualized, path must be cultivated. Then finally, in the third context, Buddha talked about the results of that kind of knowledge and practice. So he says, with relation to each of the four truths, he says there is no more sufferings to be known, there is no more origins of suffering to be eliminated, there is no more cessation to be actualized, there is no more path to be cultivated, because once you have attained the liberation, then there is no further need to cultivate each of these.
So, yeah, oh yeah. 다전에 담바시 캐주 미다소 주주선이 denshiriliya 캐주 시시 현송 다디 두체를 찍디 패지 동에데베 캐주 시스레샤 미다 동에 동 다메 시디 다 미다 시디 차메다고 시거래 이나야 차메다고 된지 어떤 게 된지샤 미다 동에 동 다메 시 다전에 마찬가지네 이니 교군중 잡기께 전에 군주된 배 제주시 되는 고버시와 단음 민중선에 고된 제주시 되는 람르고 주번인지 선에 람르고 주번인지 선에 람지된 배 제주시 전에 믿어서 주주 송도와 다 되게 다도 동네 대버디 시부디 첩첩 차인 거야. 다한다 군중 때문에 두 군중 잡기스다 간다 지 뒤 왕기 얘는 데뷔 넘주 나서 연구해 봐 드제 직송 거야. 되는 고버시와 단음사 되게 정신기 차와 모임 봐. 년부께베 똑기 고바 고지 고시 깨베 관해 아니 고버스도 되지 다들 닝시소 다들 다 치고도 다들 지시소지 교기 년부께베 똑기 봐다 고고에 관해 최소 사업지是吧 고고 쉬어서야지 단도 쉬어 대 쉬어디 내가 다 동네 쉬어서 뭐인 봐 쉬어 짜는 봐 아니 거기에 라라 김을 잡아인데 민중 대시 소소를 캐주지 하우스는 거래 다 람르고 주변 이지들잖아요 람만 저제 다 탑들이스 람 리버스럽도 하지 미시버 뭐인게 유디 내주 심으시지 직장에 람 리버 야 리카사리 자리에 있는 좀 전에 막 그 가사리 리버래 람 리버스야디 루리 리버래 과는 아니지 루리 리버 자리에 있는 셰베 가다 년부 리디디 가수를 강기 년부치디 동덕디 리신 셰베 달은 영원한데 셰게 인도잖아요 리버스 디자네 되도와 야 리카사 리베 가사디 댄시 리뷰 자리에 있는 그 세멜로스고요. 세멜로리아 잡전 세방고요. 리버고요. 드리 메이드선에 준센데마스. 저래 자네 자도와 람리버. 애는 고래 모르디 냠술렘베. 직자 처지심이 되잖아요. 두바. 될 때네 방적 가야 좀 어떨래? 아니 가소래. 년부터 방적 탕성을 제조해 되잖아요. 민지
So, furthermore, if we look at the Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths, each of these Four Noble Truths were taught on the basis of recognizing their specific characteristics. So each of these Four Noble Truths are characterized by four features. For example, with respect to suffering, there is impermanence, dissatisfaction or unsatisfactoriness, emptiness, and no self. with relation to the origin of suffering, the characteristics are cause, origin, a constant arising, and condition. So these are kind of various aspects of understanding the origins, from the point of view of the different functions, different aspects of the effects which correspond to different elements of the functions of the cause. So it's a kind of a multiple way of understanding origin from different angles. And then with relation to cessation, the truth of cessation, the four characteristics are: the first is ceasing, second is tranquility or tranquil, and third is excellence, and the fourth is definite emergence. So again here, what is being pointed out is that by using this present term, ceasing rather than ceased, the point is being made that it is this is not a kind of cessation where something has naturally come to an end, but rather it is a form of cessation where, through application of antidote, the cessation has been actively brought about. So that is the point being made. And the reference to tranquility or peace is to indicate that this is not just a temporary respite, but rather a kind of a lasting, permanent pacification. And then the third reference to excellence is to indicate that because of this permanent nature of the cessation, it is excellent. And finally, the fourth category, characteristics indicate the notion of some kind of definite emergence from this the state. And then finally, with relation to the path, the four characteristics are: the first one is the path itself, and second is a knowledge. But the Tibetan word for the second is rigpa. If it has no double postfix, then it becomes knowledge. But if we use the postfix sa, then it becomes something that is associated with reason. So it can be read as reasonable, or and then, so in some sense, grounded in reason. And the third characteristics is cultivation, because it is something that is cultivated. And finally, again, the final category is a liberator or a factor for freedom. So here again, the path is an active agent that brings about that liberation. So you can see that there is a great importance in Buddha's characterization of these different aspects of the truths to indicate the various aspects of understanding of these.
Yeah. So the impermanence, the out of four of the first noble truth. The impermanence, now here in the sense momentarily changing, never stand still. That not obvious us. We usually say, oh, this whole such sort of year built, so this is quite old, something like that, or new, like that. That is our sort of that perception on the level of just appearances. At the same time, you see, because after some time, after built, constructed, eventually, you see, few years, few decades, some cracks, some different things, you see, happen. So that's obvious change, obvious impermanence. That now use our sense, reasoning. Obvious sort of change must take place, say, after a few decades, some sort of obvious sort of change come. Or for example, tree, autumn, some different color, then all leaf fell. So that obvious change must take place say, within month. The obvious change within month must take place within days. That within hours, within minutes, within second. So unless momentarily changing there, unless that kind of nature there, obvious change never take place. So reasoning, obvious change. Then thinking, oh, there must be the substantial level momentarily changing. So never stand still. That's impermanence in subtle level. That understanding directly opposes taparzibelo. Taparzibelo tawa chijilo.
So
chijilo tawa shishela nangi midapola taparzibelo tawa.
So that understanding of that level of subtle impermanence directly opposes and challenges our distorted perceptions of things as having permanence. So in relation to the four characteristics of the First Noble Truth, there are also four distorted views. And the first distorted view is the views of things as permanent.
Now that leads why momentarily changing? As I mentioned earlier, not because third factor, but because its own sort of producer itself produce that nature. So that indicates
So this indicates that the whatever the effects, it is always dependent or under the power of its cause.
So now that's all phenomena. Even Buddha's stage, Buddha's body momentarily changing. Buddha's mind also momentarily changing. Now here, meta so shibuti shadadi dunge tembe chejusuwa. So that chejen dunge tembe want to change. Dunge tembe di keji jigbadi gui xiangwang jenes lebdi dugunjung xiangwang jishaswa.
So here of course. So here, of course, when we are talking about impermanence, we are not talking about impermanence, out of context. We are talking about impermanence in the context of understanding the nature of suffering, the First Noble Truth. So here, since we are talking about impermanence in relation to that, then what is the cause to which the suffering is, under the power of, and suffering is conditioned by? And here we will be. That's where the second truth comes into the picture, which is the origin of the cause, origin of suffering.
So that means this body fully controlled by its causes. So causes ultimately ignorance. So anything which dominated by ignorance is suffering nature. So here the suffering in the level of third level, suffering of change, suffering of
conditioning, suffering of pervasive conditioning.
So now this mentioning the third level of suffering. So once we develop some kind of awareness, that nature, then no matter how beautiful our body, our sort of facility, even world, no matter how beautiful, good, but ultimately under the dominance of ignorance. So that then develop sense of that desire to overcome that. So that's suffering, impermanence, and suffering. Then selflessness. Here selflessness and
emptiness,
empty
and
selflessness. There are different sort of interpretation. I think we can interpret this way. this
Empty.
emptiness. Emptiness means no independent existence of self, I. There are also two levels. One, as the non-Buddhist school of thought sort of believe there is independent, absolute oneness self. Does not exist that, number one. The second level are sort of natural sort of feeling when we say I and my body, my mind. There is some kind of impression. The self, something more independent and dominant, or because of the
Controller.
owner of the body and mind. So there is some kind of sort of tendency, more or less independent self, not separate, but somewhere here, within the body, some kind of, what's it, independent self. So that kind of self is no longer exist, not there. Totally, because of that, does not exist. This is one thing. Then fourth, because of selfless. That is now, we can, I think, take interpretation. All phenomena are empty. So that shows this possibility to prove our ultimate sort of grasping feeling is ignorant, unrealistic. Such independent existence, not there. So the feeling of grasping some independent existence is ignorant, baseless. So not only just mere ignorance, but distorted ignorance. So that is the, then I think it is important to know how that sort of grasping sort of feeling act as a basis of attachment, anger, hatred, fear, because of the pride,
conceitedness.
All these destructive emotion based on that kind of sort of feeling. It is clear. And also some relation with permanence. Permanent sort of, because of the
object. Grasping onto some kind of enduring entity.
Now, for example, when we develop very strong sort of negative feeling towards someone, then after some time, if someone telling you, oh, that person is not that bad, or that person actually praising you, then that moment the automatic sort of reaction is, oh, impossible. So that means you have the feeling that's something absolute, permanent. So within a short period, some positive thing impossible to have, to exist. So there is tendency, when strong anger there, the tendency is something absolute and something permanent. So the awareness of impermanence reduces that. The awareness in the non-independent existence also reduce that. And then another level, of course, that's come later, I think tomorrow. So in any way, so these things. Then another sort of for mindfulness, body mindfulness. Investigate about this body. Looks good color, good shape, but if you open this blood and kasa, veins and kasa muscle.
Muscles.
If you open, oh, terrible. I think this body looks nice, but open, oh, a lot of dirty things there. And also very delicate, isn't it? Very delicate. So I think nature accepts that delicate.
Fragility.
So our brain, very delicate. So firstly, skull cover. And then furthermore, this hair also protect our skull. I think nature process also you see arranged that way. So in any way, our body, no matter how beautiful, and also we always, because of cleansing, cleanse.
Clean.
Right. And also some ladies go to cosmetics wear. Cosmetic. But actually, dirty. This body is, very nature is dirty. And no matter how beautiful food will come from here, dirty. These dirty things were made here, not outside. So actually, this body, precious body, actually making dirty things. And also, you see, this body is the basis of illness, basis of old age. Old age not come from outside, but this body itself gradually produce that. Illness, of course, the external, some causes, virus, these things there, but within body, there is place these can work. So thinking this line, then too much attachment, my body, reduce. And also impermanence, understanding impermanence. The too much attachment about body, reduce. That mindfulness about body. Then mindfulness about feeling. So that directly involves Kunjutaba.
The second truth, the truth of origin.
So, painful experience develop anger. Pleasure experience develop attachment. Like that. So that brings the deeper understanding about second noble truth. Then mindfulness about mind. That that is in sort of mindfulness about mind. Eventually you get the feeling, oh, only mind, no self, something independent. Self is mere designated on the continuity of the mind. So some understanding, no longer existence of owner of the body and mind. That related with third noble truth. Now, on the basis of some awareness about these, deeper understanding, out of three mindfulness, then fourth mindfulness about phenomena. Now, how to deal?
So in this fourth practice of foundation of mindfulness with relation to phenomena or mental objects, then the practice of rejecting and affirmation comes.
So then, next four yandabonshi, tamanjashi yandabonshi da.
So next four are the four right, correct endeavors.
So naturally, when we develop some kind of deeper understanding and conviction develop, then the desire make effort to reduce these negative forces or negative thing and try to increase positive thing. That's the, because out of 37, now this is the second category. Then through that tireless effort, then Juruji Kambashi.
So the next category relates to what are known as the 4 factors of meditative attainment.
Tadi chajinliya, any taso omunga. Tadi tosu given nigga to catch us from the taso omunga di delimudua. Any parliament yala gas ya di Koanido. Lam the tobe nigga jadea, tonga, Gonadwa Jaya, the chick, Yana let a woman nigune. Young dog will thaw, young dog will not, young dog will legita, Sludu, Surujipungu. Nini, Geshavi Nenda, or physical or verbal action, physical action, mental action, all carry with discipline, awareness. That's practice of Shila. Then some sort of, at least some period, concentrate fully. That's the part of samadhi. Then yanda with tawa, toba. And Karachi, that or dirty any shiruk church. Says I'm going to let a woman nigger, Lovasum in Yamnik Nedi. Jungjul Pagwell Lam Gea Gucheve Chane, Palams Jana, Nigdua, let a woman nigger. So the Changjo Sudungi and the Lamgi Temper D, that Namsha, Conjust Yamichi, Changjo Sudungi Sheng. Did you that? Now we also love Yamiri.
And the elements that are necessary for the practice of cultivating meditative attainments involve what are referred to as the 5 faculties, such as faith, wisdom, and so on. And then later, another list is the eightfold, noble eightfold path. A noble eightfold path, although in some texts is, explained, at the level of the realization of the advanced and noble beings, but one can also understand their practices in the context of beginner's stage. So for example, if you look at the elements of the Noble Eightfold Path, in essence, all of these 8 aspects of the Noble Path really relate with the 3 trainings, the training in morality, the training in meditation, and training in wisdom. So one can understand the practices of the Noble Eightfold Path in the context of beginner's stage as well. So in any case, the 37 factors aspect of the path to enlightenment really explain in detail how the 4th noble truth, the cultivation of the path, is supposed to take place. And in this regard, and there is no difference between all the Buddhist traditions, whether it is Theravada or the Mahayana and any other tradition. This is a common teaching to all the Buddhist traditions.
So sometimes you see people have this sort of impression. The Theravada tradition, Pali tradition, and the Sanskrit tradition, or Bodhisattva tradition is something separate. That's totally wrong. The Pali tradition is the basis of all Buddhist practice. Then further sort of, also the some special field practice, altruism, and more sophisticated philosophy about anattama theory. Then you see more explanation, more and detailed explanation in Sanskrit tradition. So it simply, the 3rd noble truth, explain more detail, particularly in Panchaparamita Sutra. Then accordingly, the practice or meditation of shunyata, that is 4th noble truth. So further explanation. And furthermore, the fourth noble truth about Arya path, the subject side, more detailed explanation in another sutra, that is Tishivinyingundo.
The teachings on the Tathagata Garpa, essence of Buddhahood.
So that, then you see, more detailed explanation about Buddha nature. Very mind exists here, this moment. The potential of Buddhahood already there. So that we call Buddha seed or Tathagata Garba. So the something like the first story, first level. First level, the Pali tradition. Then on top of that, the Sanskrit tradition, Sutriyana. Then further drop, this part of Sanskrit tradition, the Tantriyana. So all must based on the Pali tradition, and particularly the Vinaya practice is very, very essential. Therefore, Buddha expressed, where Vinaya practice there, my teaching alive. Where no longer Vinaya practice there, my teaching no longer there. Buddha mentioned that. So, Vinaya practice is the foundation of Buddha Dharma. So in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, Cambodia, very good practice of Vinaya. Although the Vinaya within Vivashik sort of school of thought, 18 division, then more kasota. Do you understand?
Now, to the more abridged classification of four main classes.
Four main division. Tibetan tradition, mainly through Mula Sabasiddhivatan. And Chinese Bhikshu tradition and Vietnamese Dharmagupta tradition. The Theravada. So, Sayateva Shidhakarchik, Pajin Deva, Mongol Deva. Any? Shidhamji Deva. Native Deva. Chikajasa. Like that. So, now stop. So, see you again tomorrow.